few days ago, the Sonic fanbase went crazier than a guy attached to an electrical chair in the middle of a tornado in Texas when it was revealed through a game rating site in Korea that the next Sonic game to be released this year will very likely be Sonic Frontiers. Again, through the release of a definitive edition of the game. Some believe the game will be a nothing burger, just a slightly enhanced Frontiers, which makes sense considering Definitive Edition isn't something explosive when you look at definitive editions from other franchises. I can believe that. And we have to remember that us Sonic fans have gotten many things ridiculously wrong about titles. Sonic Blitz. Wow, a fighting game? The next mainline Sonic game? Cards. Yes, it's quite believable this will be absolutely nothing meaningful and just a cash grab, but this is the second time something like this happens. With Sonic X Shadow Generations 2 years ago, we were all disappointed with the fact Generations was the next Sonic remaster. We also thought we would just have 2 or 3 Shadow levels. Instead, we basically got an entirely new 3D Sonic Boost game with basically the same length as Sonic Generations and slaps harder than Will Smith with a metal hand. It also doesn't help that this might be the only Sonic game we will get this year, and there's no way they're just giving us resolution boost for a 4-year-old game in the 35th anniversary of their now multi-billion-dollar franchise. So I think I want to do something different than what others are doing, because Sonic Frontiers Definitive Edition can be so many things. I want to break down all the possible outcomes for this Sonic release and discuss them. So with that said, sit back, relax, and enjoy. So I think with all the hundreds of outcomes for the future of Sonic Frontiers Definitive Edition, you can narrow all of it down to 4 outcomes, each one going from absolute worst to absolute best. So let's begin by the worst possible outcome. This is the bad future, in which Sonic Frontiers Definitive Edition is simply the official name for Sonic Frontiers Switch 2 Edition. No improvements, no nothing. Just Sonic Frontiers made specifically for the Nintendo Switch 2. Like when Sonic X Shadow Generations got a Switch 2 version that they promoted a lot last year, or the Switch 2 version of Crossroads that is coming out physically soon, I think. You know what this means. No new content, no improvements, just the same old game with a definitive edition slapped on top. Maybe the Final Horizon update already in the disc, and this is why they're naming it Definitive Edition instead of Switch 2 Edition, and no pop-in fixes. It's sort of terrifyingly likely, but not so much. It would indeed be the worst possible outcome to have Sonic Frontiers Definitive Edition be a simple cash grab for Switch 2 owning rich kids. If you ask me, it would be a bit of a waste of potential when it comes to Sonic Frontiers. The game is insanely ambitious with great ideas, but in practice the game lacks polish and has many cool concepts that weren't given the proper care they should have because the game was rushed at the door and you can clearly see how they cut costs. That's besides them being held back by the Switch. This would very much be the worst scenario, and I think we should all hope that's not the case. But it isn't really so realistic compared to the next outcome, which leads us to... This outcome is slightly better, in which Sonic Frontiers Definitive Edition is released for all platforms and promises to improve the original Sonic Frontiers in fixing glitches, bugs, and improving the resolution, adding new settings and maybe a few tweaks and quality of life changes to the original game. This basically means it would be Sonic Frontiers with the DLC already in the game itself and with minor improvements, like removing the ridiculous pop-in of the original game. It would naturally be like a Sonic Origins Plus to Sonic Frontiers, where if you already own the game, you can simply buy the Definitive Edition as an expansion of the first game for like $10, which means no delisting, rest easy modders, and no problem for those who already bought the game. This is not the desired outcome, but comparing it side by side to it being a Switch 2 edition while writing the script definitely sounds way better than what I thought previously, and that definitely seems like the top 1 choice by the skeptics of the Sonic fanbase, which is fair to think, because that's the precise description of what a definitive edition looks like. Not something ambitious or anything, just a true way to play Sonic Frontiers, which would 100% work if they were trying to create hype for the next mainline Sonic game. That is obviously not coming out this year. I think I found some more appreciation for this outcome than before, but why don't we follow the line of thought that Sonic Frontiers is trying to create hype for its sequel and use that for the next outcome. This is when the good old copium comes into play. This is the outcome in which Sonic Frontiers Definitive Edition has significant improvements over the original version. Both the cutscenes and the in-game animations are completely remade to match the quality of games like Shadow Generations. Even the in-game animation, maybe some changes to the model, or if Sega really wants to break the internet, a brand new one. You have the spin dash from the get-go, or from the skill tree, graphic improvements, better lighting, and maybe an appearance of Shadow and Chaos Silent for a brief moment. Or if you're really pushing it, making Shadow playable, or Metal Sonic to tie in with the movie. Which I highly doubt, to be honest, because this game might be released 5 or 6 months before the movie's debut. But what I do think would be the top choice is making everyone playable in every single island. You could even make some changes, like rebalancing the combat maybe, or fixing up many things. Basically making Sonic Frontiers more polished and actually finished. I mean, this kind of goes beyond the boundaries of what a definitive edition of the game is, which matches the previous scenario way more, but I have a problem with this argument. The description of things like this are more defined by the company behind said franchise than the status quo. Sega has made a definitive edition of Persona 5, Persona 5 Royal, that makes significant changes to the game, which I can't see very well because I know nothing about Persona, but it did change a lot of things according to critics and fans alike. But what I'm feeling with this leak is that Sonic Frontiers Definitive Edition is going to be the 35th anniversary Sonic game. Let me give you an example. We've been getting one Sonic game every year since 2021. It was a little rough when it began back then, but it's a formula that started to increase in quality the more time passed. Now we're in a time where Sonic Team cooked 2 games that are praised by fans and critics alike back to back in 2 years, and you're gonna look at me dead in the eyes and tell me for the 3rd time in the franchise's 35th anniversary, we are getting an ever so slightly enhanced Frontiers? Which leads us to the 4th outcome, and the one that requires the highest dosing of copium possible, but dang it, is it good. This outcome is basically the Sonic Frontiers Revisited mod, but made officially. Because during development, Sonic Team was the size of my classroom being held at gunpoint by Sega executives wanting Sonic the Hedgehog Breath of the Wild with a time limit of a television cooking contest. We got a game that didn't reach the potential it was promising. An open world Sonic game filled with exploration, freedom, and fun. In this scenario, Sonic Team's choice is not to just give us that in Frontiers 2 next year, but instead give us that in the original Frontiers, which basically means a complete overhaul of the original game. That not only does everything the previous outcome we were talking about did, but even more of it. The controls and physics are improved, you're given new moves, more animations, and the most exciting of all, gameplay changes. Imagine giving a cooldown or a combo gauge to every single move you have in the game to avoid move spamming, making the parry actually challenging. Properly this time. Nerfing the side loop so now you can't get rings for free, and you have to platform around the open zone to earn the power boost instead of walking in circles. Basically, Mario Kishimoto's dream version of Frontiers, his passion project, like a what-if Sonic Frontiers was made with the Sonic team that gave us Shadow Generations. Now, this would make it very possible for the playable characters to be featured in every island. Or even crazier, imagine the ending of the original game, giving us a better final boss against the end. So now we don't just have one peak final boss, we have 2 of them. No, I need to get help, bro. I'm starting to become dangerously delusional. Yep, those were all the possible outcomes for Sonic Frontiers Definitive Edition. Of course, because I have common sense, I want the 4th and best outcome to be the case. But honestly, if the 3rd one will happen, I will be okay. Maybe I'll be a little disappointed, but I'll be fine. Not much different for the 2nd one. I think in terms of likelihood, I would pick somewhere between 2 and 3. I think that's honestly the most likely a definitive edition can get. Yeah, there are a few other factors contradicting it, but that's my safest bet. I think adding playable characters to the base game is my expectation. You can play as Amy and Chronos, Knuckles and Ares, Tails and Chaos. I'm betting on this. But if this is just a Switch 2 edition, then I'll crash out harder than your dad when you stole his credit card and threatened to sue him for abuse if he took it from your hand. And with all that said, bye bye.